Granblue Fantasy Relink is a game that was 7 years in the making. A game that everyone was expecting to never come out, but it did. And I love it. Because I love anime girls. Not this one's a man. And I say $20 is $20, babe.
星をまたしからたでいつかあなたの空へ焦れない夢の先へ Always on my mind Not forever You always on my side Can you hear my voice?
Hello there, fellow Skyfarers. My name is Cypher, and today we're going to talk about why Cagliostro is the most adorable, lovable, and cutest uncle in all of the Sky Realm. And it all starts with a web browser gacha game. No, I'm not joking. We'll get into Relink in just a bit, but we're gonna start here. Granblue Fantasy is a gacha game that has been around for Christ Lord Almighty, 10 years? What the fuck? Yeah, nobody talks about this game. I am not surprised why though. But Granblue Fantasy Relink is essentially a spin-off title from the web browser game, and Relink's story continues right after Act 1 and Act 2 of the main game. So after the events of Nalhegrande Skydom specifically. Now, I usually start with reviewing the story of the game, but for this video specifically, I'm gonna switch it up and start with what makes this game great. The gameplay. A lot of people compare this game to Monster Hunter World specifically. And let me tell you this, no, it is not Monster Hunter. The system in place may be similar to Monster Hunter, but it is not Monster Hunter. It is instead more similar to another one of Cygames' former projects, Dragalia Lost. I fucking missed that game, man. Now, let me start with the basics. The game is not made for mouse and keyboard. Use a controller. You have two attack buttons, X for light attacks and Y for heavy attacks. Y can be charged for a stronger attack. L1 is your block, R2 is your dodge. You can perform perfect guard and perfect dodge, with a perfect dodge giving you a temporary invincibility buff. Then you can hold R1 and use any of the 4 buttons to cast a skill. L2 is a lock-on. You have a couple of potions that you can use by pressing and holding the directional buttons. And finally, you can combo your attacks by using different sequences of light and heavy attacks. But this can vary. You see, there are different characters in this game, and each have their own special playstyle that caters to each of them. Cagliostro, for example, throws a projectile on her heavy attack that can be charged slower than a snail that's out to get you. But in conjunction with her light attacks, her strikes will change based on what combo you are using, and ending that combo with a faster heavy attack. Another example would be Narmaya, who switches stances when pressing the Y button, which goes for some sweet combos. You can also pair those with skills, which by the way you can swap for other skills which are either offensive or defensive. Then there's link attacks, where you can do a follow-up attack when you've smacked an enemy one too many times, which then fills up the link percentage. Once that percentage is at 100%, the next time you link attack with 3 more other players, it'll trigger link time. Link time causes time to slow down and gives you buffs like infinite resources and faster skill cooldowns. We have our Skybound arts, which are your ultimates and can be chained to create huge damage bursts. The damage burst element will be decided by the first person who activated their Skybound arts. Also, you can die, but you're not out of the game yet. Allies can still revive you while you are in your down state, or you can use a revival potion to quickly get back into the game. The game only ends when that red bar depletes, and for the love of God, mash your buttons! It will help you get back up much faster. God, that was a mouthful. Anyways, the gameplay loop, or the stuff you do after you do the main story, is mostly questing. Now this is the part where people start to compare this game with Monster Hunter. Again, the questing format is very similar. You go up to your quest board, pick a quest, finish said quest, gather materials, craft weapons, upgrade weapons, rinse and repeat. But that's where its similarities end. Dragalia Lost is literally the same damn game. You go pick a quest, you wait in a lobby for 3 more other dudes, and you keep spamming stickers while you're at it, either as a sign of respect or to assert dominance. You start the quest, each character has different combos and skills. Your Skybound arts is your dragon form, and it ends very quickly for a majority of the time. Not to mention that fighting bosses isn't the only game mode they have. They have Slimepede, a defense mission, and a survival mission. Hell, I can fucking say that the fighting mechanic is more reminiscent of Granblue Fantasy vs Rising, their fighting game. And that fighting game's fucking free. It is not Monster Hunter. It was never Monster Hunter. You should stop comparing it to Monster Hunter. Look at Dragalia Lost. Look at it. Look at it. It is Relink. And no, I am not huffing copium after its end of service. This game has a mastery tree where all of your skills come from, a leveling system, a weapon ascension system, and even the sigils are worm prints. And the greatest gift Bahamut has given us, a wishlist system. This one's not in Dragalia Lost, this one's original. Besides, this whole questing material gathering system didn't even originate from Monster Hunter. It was Phantasy Star Online! Yes, the first one! There is nothing else in this game that shouts Monster Hunter, so stop it. Stop comparing it unless you want yourself to be disappointed. Relink is its own goddamn game. But this is the part where it gets a bit rough. Despite the fact that this game's gameplay is incredibly polished with amazing sound design and a superb combination of both 2D and 3D effects, the problem lies within its gameplay loop, specifically the endgame. It is incredibly grindy and for little to no rewards at all. If you're a Granblue Fantasy gacha gamer, you're probably laughing right now. There's a reason why people call it Granblue Fantasy. This game's end loop mostly consists of one quest. What the fuck? What the? The music is getting a bit loud, isn't it? Oh. Wait a sec. Oh no.
Oh shit. Here we go again.
I'll shatter this sky with the last chain breaks in the ashes and the ruins. When I fight to recreate, and this evolution will die.
Proto Bahamut is back, baby, and this time he ain't gonna sugarcoat it. This motherfucker gave me carpal tunnel. This is where the majority of your endgame grinding will be. We don't talk about this one.
Give praise, for he has no equal.
Okay? Terminus weapons. They have an absurdly low chance to drop, and it's randomized. The good thing is, once you receive a Terminus weapon, the chances for the other Terminus weapons to drop increase until you collect all of them. And the ascension materials needed to awaken them is very painful to get. Now, Proto Bahamut isn't really that difficult to clear in co-op. He's more of a pushover and the fight tends to be a bit boring since you just fight him on the ship. It's not like Jet A, another boss for example, who almost has the same mechanics but is much more fun to fight, simply because you're in an arena, and it usually devolves into a deadly dance more than a fucking castle siege. So yes, I can easily see why players get burnt out after a couple of hundred runs, especially the Curio, Box, and Sigil transmutations. Man. 2 of the best sigils can only be gotten by having Curios appraised. And dear God, let's not forget about the Never in my life have I ever wanted to kill a bird this badly. Now, most of these things are endgame player complaints. The journey to get here is actually very fun. Now, these problems, or issues as players would call it, really stem from their own misconceptions about the game. Because the majority of players who have like 80 plus hours into the game treat it as a live service one. And the reason for this treatment is the excessive comparison with Monster Hunter. Relink is a one and done game for most people. You play it, you get your money's worth by pouring in like 60 hours or more, and then you move on to the next game. It is really only up to you if you want to continue playing to grind for the sake of grinding. This isn't a fear of missing out issue as well, since nearly everything in this game is accessible. The things you need to pay are starter packs and some skin colors, which are completely optional and not necessary. It is okay to say that you are done with a game, that you've seen all it has to offer. I mean, this is literally one of the few games that has released this year without any major bugs or issues, which is wild to think about, that most games are unfinished or has game-breaking bugs at launch. And a $60 game with amazing gameplay, no issues at launch, no game-breaking bugs, and can make you spend at least 60 hours is considered rare. So yes, the gameplay is incredibly amazing. It feels ridiculously smooth. The attacks connecting feel chunky and satisfying. The sound effects too, my god. And the visuals to pair it with are one of the best out there. It is really, really good. But now we've covered the highest highs. Next, we're going to cover the lowest lows. I don't even know where to start. There's going to be some spoilers here, some minor, some major. So here's a timestamp if you don't want any spoilers at all. Now, the story. Is mid as fuck. It is your typical anime plotline of saving the world with the power of friendship. It is cringe and painful to watch. But there's a reason for this. You see, Grandblue's story, the gacha game, has been ongoing for quite some time now. 10 years. Yeah, 10 years. So they've already established a proper setting in this world, and I believe Cygames wanted to make Relink's story cater to both existing and new players to the game, mostly to the new ones. They wanted to make sure that once you got into the game, you didn't really need to know any previous storyline. We already have our group, they've all made their connections with each other, and now we're gonna see where their adventures lead them. So, if you're someone who has probably only watched Naruto and Jujutsu Kaisen, who wanted to try this game out, it will be a great experience for you. But for the veterans out there who have watched nearly everything and seen every garbage trope in existence, this is also for you. They wanted to make sure that it has a story that doesn't immediately hit you like a truck. They wanted it to appeal to everyone, but a story made for everyone is a terrible story. And you know what the worst thing is? They could have done better. We are going back to the gacha game, okay? I am dragging you with me. It is frustrating because Granblue Fantasy has one of the best stories out there. The main story starts and smacks you out of left field with the MC being dead. DEAD, killed, blood and guts out. It has a slow start, but it gets better the more you continue the story. Not to mention the amazing side stories that they have. That makes you feel so criminal that all of these are in a web browser game. What makes the Sky Blue trilogy, Scattering Magic, Priestess of the Dunes and Teardrops of the Sand, Together in Song being my personal favorites. They have so many amazing stories that I just can't help but feel emotional when I remember them. Which only really frustrates me even more that Relink wasn't what I expected it to be. I know they can do better. I know they can. But they didn't. And to make matters worse, the translations are really off. Like this scene, for example. In the original dialogue in Japanese, the rough translation for what Catalina says is, And in the official English translation of the game, it seems she's threatening them, which is very inconsistent with her character. Because if you've at least watched the anime or read the gacha game story, you'll know Catalina isn't like that. She wouldn't make threats because she firmly believes in protecting people. Same with Id and making him more sadistic, like this! And the original JP dialogue being like what? Look, I'm fine with translations not being one-to-one, like it's fine. Some meaning will get lost through translations, it's not really a big issue. But if you're literally going to change what they're saying and be inconsistent with their characters, then what the hell are you doing? Are you trying to make your own story here? Go to Wattpad or fucking make a blog and post your fanfic there, I don't care. Just don't do this to my goddamn game! It'll just leave people confused. And I know Cygames has always had issues with translation since they do this in-house, but it's just so infuriating. Moving on from that dumpster fire, let's talk about Id. When people watch the story unfold before them, they will typically make a conclusion that Id is a villain turned hero after getting talk no jutsu'd by us, the captain. But if you've been paying attention, you'll realize very early on that Id genuinely wants to protect Lyria and is having doubts with his mission after seeing the poor girl stripped of her free will. But that really isn't convincing enough for us, for him to suddenly switch to our side. Considering that the story is generally 20 to 30 hours long, there really wasn't enough time to flesh out the characters. The only exceptions being the main crew of the Grand Cypher since, you know, just watch the anime. And the best way for you to actually get to know Id as a character is through his Fate episode. Bruh. This is the part where you start to understand Id, that he was always a good person and that his doubts started long before the events of Relink's story. That Id wanted to be a hero, a protector of the weak, and fully believed in his stepmother's visions of bringing salvation to the world. That he believed he was doing the right thing. But he was wrong. And that mistake cost the lives of a lot of people and could have potentially destroyed the entire Sky Realm. And that's what makes Id's redemption much more impactful. The weight of his sins that he never intended to do those things, that his mistake cost him, and ultimately the ones who paid that price were other people. Innocent people. Most players just scoff and say Id's story is a typical redemption arc for villains, but he was never a villain. He was manipulated, and it's tragic. Id is a really great character who didn't have enough time to be fleshed out in the main story, and is instead relegated to his Fate episode. It is fucking wild. I can't really stress just how much the gameplay carries this game, rather than its story, because the game reeks of development hell and it's understandable. And for those of you who have skipped, the story isn't great, mistranslation and character inconsistencies, story doesn't flesh out the characters that much, and they could have done better because they put out bangers in the past. And that's the lowest of lows in this game. But there's one thing I love about it. This game has tons of ups and downs, and the journey to get this far has been a roller coaster of emotions. I may have went a bit too hard on the story part, but I love this game. I say that a lot on this channel. My past few videos has just been me showing my love and appreciation over games that have stuck with me. But every time I say it, I do mean it. And this game is no exception. Even though it has its bad apples, the fresh ones still taste as good as it should be. But in this basket of fresh and bad apples, there are 3 that are golden, undeterred by the inevitable spoiling of the entire basket. Those 3 golden apples are the art direction, the music, and the cutscenes. The art direction is just goddamn. It looks so good. From the details and lining with each individual model, and the shading just makes it look 2D. It really reminds me so much of Dishonored's art style, where they base everything in the world and try to make it look like they're oil paintings. I can't stress how much I love this, and seeing Relink's version is visually pleasing. The music is really fucking good too. Like, those vocal tracks are going hard.
Watch your world to live into a vivid reality. Bring your whole will, ready yourself for suffering mercy. Fulfilling the Skyward prophecy.
They're on fire, I tell you. I can't. My ears, they feel like the divine has touched them. And finally, the cutscenes. You know what? I'll let it speak for itself.
資源の竜闇の炎の子汝の名はバハメント
So in combination of all of this, these three things, these three golden apples, you put them in a blender and they mix perfectly to make the best apple smoothie you've ever tasted in your life. This game is something, but at the end of the day, this is my reason for playing the game, for going through its ups and downs. Granblue Fantasy Relink, Granblue Fantasy in general has a large emphasis on the sky. And that sky can mean different things to different people. Some a sunsetty orange, some a gray rainy day, but to me, no matter what comes, no matter how things change in my life, I will always remember it to be blue. You see that sky, your life may be different wherever you are. A different scenery, a different story, or a different path. That sky will remain the same. You'll see it, and you'll know how far you've come. That, to me, is what makes the sky blue.